Whether you're talking about time pressure intensity, difficulty level, limited prep resources, or the low passing rate, the McKinsey problem-solving test is one of the deadliest tests ever built. Don't even think about the case interview unless you can pass the PST. In this video, and in many subsequent ones, we'll tackle every single aspect of a perfect study plan for this test. So let's get started. Hi, my name is Kim Tran, a former McKinsey consultant and the founder of this platform. To be honest with you, the problem-solving test is what got me the idea of founding this management consulting prep platform. At the time, I was dying to get into McKinsey. Not only did I want to be a management consultant, but I wanted to do it at McKinsey. Of course, landing a job in any of the big three would be a dream. But with all respect to Bain and BCG, McKinsey does have an edge. But standing in the middle of my super aspiration is the freaking problem-solving test. I was frustrated and at the same time very nervous. My key to success as a student in college had been to study hard, but with the PST it didn't work. You can't study hard without a lot of materials. Now I'm just grateful. The PST forced me to be really strategic and to study really smart. I developed for myself a rigorous study strategy that allowed me to get into the teeth of the test principles and get a lot better without a lot of actual practice tests. I shared my system on a simple personal blog, and it's just been getting bigger and bigger. The feedback was positive and the audience is growing like crazy every year. The PST is a very interesting concept. Have you ever asked why it came into existence at all? Well, consulting firms are just like any other business. They have to balance between effectiveness and efficiency. Sometimes there's not a middle ground to achieve both. Take recruitment, for example. We've seen that CV screening round is a very efficient way to evaluate candidates. Consulting firms can assign relatively low-ranking staff on the task, and they can sort a large volume of CVs in a short amount of time. But CV screening is not 100% accurate. That's why there's the case interview. While it's a lot more effective than CV screening, it costs a lot more. It takes about 5 hours of high-ranking managers for each candidate. Then McKinsey said, no, we need to create something in between to balance the two aspects. And here comes the problem-solving test. I think this is a great invention. The CV screener can pass in more risky candidates, and the interviewer for sure will spend time with a much better group of candidates. Over the last couple of years, we've seen BCG adopt the same trend, creating their own version of the PST, the BCG potential test. Later in this video, we'll touch briefly on how the BCG potential test is different from the PST. But now let's talk about the McKinsey problem-solving test. What's it like? It's a multiple choice test with 26 multiple choice questions divided into 3 cases. Each usually starts with 1 page of reading, then a few questions, then a few more reading sections, then a few more questions. There's a time limit of 60 minutes, which you'd need to use every second of. Even the smartest people I know would barely finish the test by the last minute. Many, including myself, don't even make it to the last question. More bad news, the test is quite numerically heavy, and they don't let you use a calculator. About half of it involves calculations of some sort or another. This test is such an interesting topic, and of course, there have been quite a few myths that have come up about the test. So let me bust them here. Number 1, the PST is a case interview on paper. No, it's not. If you think of the set of management consulting skills as everything in the square, the case interview can cover something like this, and the PST covers something like this. There are a few common qualifications both rounds examine, but each has specifics on its own ground, and they're meant to be that way. The PST is much more heavy on logic, numbers, and in daily language, the nerdy part of the consultant, while case interview is more on the actual person-to-person consulting work. Number 2, the PST is similar to the SAT math section. This is a horrible comparison. These two are completely different tests. Even for the seemingly most related part, the quantitative part is nowhere close. The SAT is strictly about math, while the PST is much more about logic and business problem solving. Even for a tiny portion of the SAT math section, which has word problems, they're fairly simple ones with context not even set in business. Don't spend any of your valuable time on the SAT. It's like practicing driving a car to prepare to fly an airplane. I'm not saying driving a car doesn't help with anything, but the value you get out of that practice is so small in regards to your goal to fly a plane. Number 3, you either have it or you don't. Or in other words, the ability to pass the PST has to be something you're born with. Of all this is the most terrible myth. It probably started by some consultants out there who didn't prepare for the test and still passed. Maybe they're trying to show off, or maybe they just don't care about listeners. Every time you hear someone say that, immediately disregard it. The PST can be learned. How? Let's get to that part right now. A perfect study plan for the PST involves 2 equally important parts. In the scope of this one video, we can't talk about every part in great detail, so please refer to the follow-up videos. Anyway, the 2 parts are, number 1, the ability to answer the questions correctly, and number 2, the ability to answer questions quickly. Many people don't have the patience to separate their study into different areas, it turns out. Their study's all over the place with no point of focus, and it's so hard to do it that way. It doesn't save any time either. So on part number 1, the key objective is to understand the test, the logic inside and out, and be able to solve every question as close to 100% correct as possible. Of course, without any time pressure. To help you with this part, we analyze the test critically and divide it into different question types. This is the link to the playlist where we talk about each question type in great detail, how they're constructed, what's the logical foundation of them, and how the wrong choice is usually made, etc. Basically, there are 6 types of questions, accounting for 90% of the test. The test gives us a number of data and information, or we simply call it fact. When a question just strictly asks about the facts themselves, we call this a reading facts question. Let's say the fact is there are 1,000 more visits to the Mconsulting Prep website on Monday than on Sunday. A reading fact question may ask you, which of the following best estimate how many visitors per hour on Monday is more than that of Sunday? This accounts for 38% of the PST and almost 100% of the BCG potential test. So BCG test takers, you know how to focus your study. Refer to this video link here for greater detail. When a question goes a step beyond this, asking you about what reasons, if true, may explain that facts, we have root cause reason questions. This is a somewhat similar to hypothesis in case interviews. The difference is that in case interviews, we use hypothesis to save time and to pinpoint our approach in a more efficient way. In the PST, root cause reasons only test your logic. You don't need to worry about whether a possible root cause is possibly true or not. You just need to identify if that possible root cause does explain the given fact or not. Given the fact provided above, a root cause reason question may ask you, which of the following statements, if true, would not correctly explain the assertion above? On the answer choices we have A, Mconsulting Prep publishes new content every Monday. B, most students don't have the habit of studying on Sunday, etc. Notice that even though statement A is not correct in real life, this still counts as a possible root cause for the given fact. Remember that on the question there's the phrase if true clearly stated. This question type accounts for about 13% of the test. Refer to the video linked here for details. Now on the other side, when a question goes a step in the other direction, asking you to identify what conclusions you can logically make based on the provided facts, we have the fact-based conclusion questions. Given the running context, a fact-based conclusion question may ask you, which of the following statements can be correctly concluded based on the given fact? On the answer choices we may have A, Mconsulting Prep live chat support staff have to stand by on Monday, or B, the website server faces more pressure on Monday, etc. Notice that even though statement A is true in real life, this is not a correct choice here. Remember that we're talking about statements logically concluded from the given fact. This accounts for about 14% of the test, and refer to this video for greater details. When you step aside those logical views and a question needs you to set up equations to solve, we'll call it a word problem question. Sometimes they don't need you to solve for absolute answers, but rather answers in variable format like this. We have the formula questions. These two account for about 20% of the test. Refer to this video and our website for details. Lastly, almost every case in the PST starts with an introduction case context page. At the end of that context is often a statement from the CEO, manager, or chairman. Then the first question often asks you about the assertion. We call this client interpretation. Almost every case has one question of this type. Refer to this for greater details. If I were you tackling the first part of the perfect PST study plan, I would study each question type one by one in great detail to understand it inside and out. You'll find that when the test is broken onto this level of detail, solving them 100% correctly without time pressure is actually very feasible. When you can do that, gradually move to the second part of the study plan. I say the word gradually because there may not be an exact turning point where you completely finish the first part and can go on to completely focus on the second part. Some of the skills on the second part you may want to start early, and some of the stuff on the first part you would want to come back for reviewing purposes. But generally, make sure you know how to get it right before you know how to get it fast. So here we go, the second part of the perfect study plan, how to increase your speed. There are 3 subparts to this. 2.1, increase your reading speed. This sounds difficult, but it's not. There are so many programs out there on how to read faster. We've tried many, and probably the best one is a program created by Princeton. This method only takes a couple of hours of intense practice, and the result is tremendous. Candidates we tested using this method improve their reading speed by double with ease, some even higher. Don't worry if you don't know what that is. Refer to our website to download the free PDF on this program. We'll soon make a video to demonstrate this method in an even more powerful way. When that video is done, the link will be right here. 2.2, increase your calculation speed. There's no doubt that a big chunk of the test involves math. The quicker you can do this, the more time you can spend on the non-quantitative part. This is a muscle that just needs to be practiced. The more you pound in, the better you'll get. It's much more simple than the qualitative part where you need to understand the logic first. The challenge is that it's hard to take the math out from the PST and practice it alone. We usually have to do it together with other skills in our already limited practice materials. Understanding this need, we've developed quite a few free practice drills on our website. At the heart, it's math, but we present it in a number of different formats. Plain calculation, short context, long context, and chart context to best replicate the real environment you'll encounter in the real PST and also in the case interview. 2.2, embrace test-taking hacks. It doesn't hurt to know a few tips here and there, but this can get pretty confusing. At the time I was preparing for the test, I got so many different tips. Many of them even conflicted with each other. To be honest, even now I don't know which is better. Should we read the question first, then go back to the context? Or should we read the context first? If we decided to do something in between, or to what extent? Well, these are all very personal preferences. So in the process of giving you tips, I provide you also an index on how strongly you should follow my advice. Some items I really want you to apply, while there are others I'm just giving you my preference for reference purposes. Please refer to our website for the most up-to-date list of tips and tricks. As the format and the environment of the test can change slightly from year to year, content in this area needs updating regularly. 2.4, putting it all together in practice cases. Lastly, a very important factor of the second part is to put it all together in a complete case and to take it like a real testing environment. This is the final act, gluing all things you learn throughout the study plan together. For this, what you need is a bunch of practice tests as close to the actual test as possible. If you follow my study plan from the beginning, unlike others who haven't had use of any of the official practice tests from McKinsey themselves, now is the time to use them. Plus, to add a little positivity, we provide you one practice case. You can download it for free from our website as well. So there you have it, a very brief layout of the perfect study plan. There are many more insights I would like to give you, but given the scope of this video, it'll have to wait for other videos. I hope this adds a lot of value to your study, and you can take these insights, apply them, and design your own specific study plan that suits your background and time frame. If If you need help with that, transforming this into a specific day-to-day plan, please also refer to our website. And best of luck with this brutal test. At Management Consulting Prep, we believe everybody can pass the PST. Are you a believer?